Hi, this is Rebecca from PrepScholar. In this video, I'm going to explain what TOEFL scores you need if you're applying to Harvard or MIT. The PrepScholar offices are located in the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts. We're just down the street from two of America's great universities, Harvard and MIT. In fact, our offices are just about halfway between Harvard and MIT. If you walk down the street from our offices in one direction, you get to Harvard in about 20 minutes. And if you walk in the other direction, you get to MIT in about 20 minutes. Why do I mention all this? Because many of our students are interested in going to Harvard and MIT. And if you want to go to one of these schools and you're not a native English speaker, you might need to take the TOEFL. So, in this video, we're going to explain everything you need to know about what TOEFL scores you need for Harvard and MIT. Let's start with Harvard. Do you even need to take the TOEFL for Harvard? It depends. If you're a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, you will not need to take the TOEFL. If you're an international applicant from a major English-speaking country, such as Canada, the UK, Australia, or New Zealand, you also shouldn't need to take the TOEFL. However, if you're an international applicant from a non-English speaking country, you may need to take the TOEFL. This depends partly on whether you're an undergraduate or a graduate student. If you are applying to be an undergraduate and are from a non-English speaking country, you do not have to, but may, take the TOEFL. If you are applying to be a graduate student and are from a non-English speaking country, you will most likely need to take the TOEFL. You may also need to meet a certain score threshold in order to qualify for admission. Now, let's take a closer look at the Harvard TOEFL score requirements for undergraduate and graduate applicants. The TOEFL is not required for undergraduate applicants to Harvard. However, Harvard will accept TOEFL scores if you choose to submit them. Because there is no undergraduate TOEFL requirement, Harvard does not have a minimum required or recommended TOEFL score for undergraduate applicants. Nonetheless, all international applicants whose first language is not English must have a strong command of the language in order to gain acceptance. Harvard is one of the most well-known Ivy League schools, with an undergraduate acceptance rate of just 6%. Therefore, if you plan to take the TOEFL, aim for a score in at least the 100s. Though Harvard doesn't require the TOEFL for undergraduate applicants, most of its graduate programs require applicants to submit TOEFL or IELTS scores with their applications. Graduate TOEFL requirements can vary depending on the school, department, and program. At Harvard, many schools have minimum TOEFL score requirements that apply to all programs in that school. The requirements of individual schools vary widely. For example, the Harvard Anthropology PhD degree requires a minimum TOEFL score of 80, while the Harvard Graduate School of Education requires a minimum TOEFL score of 105 for its students. So, be sure to check with your individual school to see what its score requirements are. If you want to go to Harvard, you might need to take the TOEFL. You don't need to take the TOEFL for undergraduate admission, but Undergraduate admissions at Harvard are very competitive, and you should be speaking English at a high level. The graduate schools of Harvard typically do require TOEFL scores, but these vary depending on the school. Check with your school to see what TOEFL score you need. Okay, what about the other university down the street, MIT? What are their TOEFL requirements? Well, like Harvard, MIT has different requirements for undergraduate and graduate students. If you are applying to be an undergraduate at MIT and are from a non-English speaking country, you do not have to, but may, take the TOEFL. If you are applying to be a graduate student and are from a non-English speaking country, you will most likely need to take the TOEFL. Now, let's take a closer look at the MIT TOEFL score requirements for undergraduate and graduate applicants. International undergraduate applicants to MIT have two options for proving their English proficiency. First, take the TOEFL and 2 SAT subject tests, or take the SAT or ACT and 2 SAT subject tests. In other words, you get to choose one test to take, TOEFL, SAT, or ACT. No matter which test you choose, you have to submit SAT subject test scores from 2 tests as well. One of the subject tests must be a math test, and the other must be a biology, chemistry, or physics test. If you decide to take the TOEFL, the minimum score you must get to qualify for admission to MIT is a 90. Although you do not need to score more than this minimum to get accepted, MIT advises applicants to score higher for a better chance of admission. So, MIT recommends a TOEFL score of at least 100. What about graduate applicants? Most of MIT's graduate programs require international applicants from non-English speaking countries to submit their TOEFL or IELTS scores with their applications. Like Harvard, graduate TOEFL requirements can vary depending on the school, department, and program. But most of MIT's best-known programs require a minimum TOEFL score of 100. In addition, some MIT graduate programs prefer IELTS scores over TOEFL scores. Therefore, always check directly with your program to learn what its English proficiency requirements are. No matter what, be sure to check with your individual school to check its specific English requirements. Like Harvard, MIT does not require TOEFL scores of its undergraduate students. MIT students may demonstrate their English proficiency through the TOEFL, but they can also demonstrate it by taking the SAT. Also like Harvard, MIT's TOEFL requirements for graduate admissions vary from school to school. Most schools require a TOEFL score of at least a 100. And a few schools don't ask for TOEFL scores, asking you to take the IELTS instead. Whichever university you want to go to, we recommend PrepScholar TOEFL's course. Founded by Harvard graduates and based right here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, PrepScholar offers the very best TOEFL preparation you can get. Try it now at TOEFL.PrepScholar.com. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and see you at PrepScholar.